An Iron Bowl victory. We are about to be live on Bleacher Report, so give me 1 second while we set all this up. But an Iron Bowl victory nonetheless. So Alabama survives Auburn to get an Iron Bowl victory, a victory against a team on the road in an environment that is as good as any in all of college football. We talk about rivalry games all the time. Any conventional wisdom that you may have going into the game goes out the window. These are the type of environments where the unexpected is to be expected. And we had a little bit of that in this game. This was a great example of a rivalry game through and through. You had Alabama getting out to that early lead. You had Auburn coming right back, fighting, making it a game. But more than anything, you had a gutsy fourth down call that I think really needs to be the topic of conversation when we talk about this game. Listen, there's a lot we can unpack about what didn't go right. We will get into that as we always do, but we need to really focus on what went right in this game. And Gentle over on Bleacher Report saying if Alabama plays like that in the playoffs, they're chopped liver. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot that you want to see better. At the end of the day, this is a very good Auburn defense. Alabama found a running game, which I have to eat crow. I said coming out of last game against Eastern Illinois that I didn't think that you were going to be able to establish a run game as successful as they were. I didn't think that that's the environment you establish a run game that carries over into a game like Auburn. Boy, was I wrong there. Alabama looked better running the football tonight than they've looked all season, and that's with an unfortunate injury to Jam Miller. We're going to have to keep up with that. But Alabama looked really good running the football. And the craziest thing is, possibly to me, is the game where Alabama probably runs the football the best. They can't throw the ball with any sort of consistency. Isaiah Horton had a big game, but Auburn did a good job of keeping a Jeremy Bernard largely out of this game. Ryan Williams wasn't even a factor. That is something we have to unpack. I remain shocked that there's not something designed for Ryan Williams. Listen, even if he's had some problems, he's had some drops this season. That's to be expected. Wide receivers will drop the football. He has had some incredibly untimely drops. No doubt they need to be corrected. No doubt that needs to be something worked on. But as of right now, he is still the best weapon Alabama has when the ball is in his hands. I really like this Alabama wide receiver room. I have not let that be a secret. You all know that I'm high on it. I think it's very deep. But Ryan Williams is still your best guy when that ball's in his hands. And it was a little bit perplexing to see such a limited game plan around him. I think that's something I'm interested to kind of figure out why. But even though you didn't have Ryan Williams involved, even though Jeremy Bernard didn't have his typical game, Isaiah Horton was huge. Isaiah Horton had a great game today. Ty Simpson made some really big throws to get him the football, especially in the end zone. None bigger than that fourth down. And that's why I said when we started this, there's going to be a lot to unpack in this game, as there should be. It was a true rivalry game through and through. Close game, made you nervous, made you actually go out there and win it. But at the end of the day, Alabama did just that. Alabama went out there and got a win on the road in an environment that has been unkind to Alabama, right? And for whatever reason, this is something we talk about. Other people kind of think it's odd. They think that Auburn isn't cursed. But Bama and Georgia fans know Jordan Hare is cursed for whatever reason for both Bama and for Georgia. That stadium is absolutely cursed. So to get out of there with a win is huge. I really am hoping that Jam Miller is healthy for a playoff run should Alabama win an SEC championship game. I hope he's healthy for an SEC championship game, especially after how he played tonight. It is incredibly unfortunate that the game he really looks his best. I mean, that looked like the Jam Miller we heard about all offseason. For those of you that were keeping up with Alabama in the offseason, that was a major topic of conversation, was Jam Miller, how good he was looking, how good the run game was looking to be. Daniel Hill looked really good early on, had an injury in spring, kind of had that injury linger through fall, and then in one of the scrimmage, boom, major injury to Jam Miller, and he just never looked like the guy. There were glimpses. Y'all know I'm a big Jam Miller fan. I really like the kid. One, I'm biased to players that I got to watch in high school. I got to see some Jam Miller, but it just really is unfortunate that the game he's putting it all together after that shoulder injury, he goes down with an injury. And the last time I personally saw him, if anybody in the chat, either on Bleacher Report or on YouTube, wants to correct me, the last time I saw him in this game, he was on crutches going off the field. That's not what you need, especially going into an SEC championship game. But Daniel Hill did look good. So, fascinating stuff that Alabama finds a running game against Auburn. Even more fascinating that when you find a running game, the passing game is as bad as it's been all year, but you get out of there with a win. And to me, that's a big deal. Rivalry games are squirrely. The fact that Alabama's defense stepped up the way they did, I continue to be very encouraged with Alabama's defense. I continue to be impressed with Alabama's defense. They're a bend but don't break unit. In no way, shape, or form am I saying, hey, this is the best defense in all of college football. But I think that they create opportunities as well as any defense in college football. They force turnovers as well as any defense in college football. And we're even talking about a game where Zay Mincy, someone who I'm really high on in terms of his upside. I loved him coming out of high school. Thought he was a really interesting player. Zay Mincy was having a really good game, and then boom, dropped that interception, and then a huge gain off of a missed tackle. You catch that interception, we're talking about in a totally different game. But that's what I'm talking about when I say this Alabama defense puts themselves in positions to be opportunistic as well as any defense in the country. You can point to me a defense that's probably better against the run. You can point to me a defense that's better at creating havoc up front, better at getting sacks. That's something Alabama isn't great at. But you can't really give me a defense that's just head and shoulders better than Alabama at creating opportunities. It's just up to them to capitalize on it. How many times did Alabama get the ball loose this evening? They didn't capitalize on it. Now, luckily, they did in huge areas with with the interceptions. But I'm talking, how many times did you punch the football out? How many times did you create an opportunity? That's what Alabama is great at on defense, is creating those opportunities. So, listen, I know that there's going to be doom and gloom. We're Bama fans. There's going to be doom and gloom. But at the end of the day, you want a rivalry game on the road in a stadium that's given you trouble. And I'm going to be very honest here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be very honest about the state of Auburn football. Are they a great football team? No, they have great pieces on that football team. I think they have great pieces in the wide receiver room over there at Auburn. I think they've got some solid running backs. I think that they have some solid guys up front on that defense. This is a better Auburn team than we saw with Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze was absolutely the issue. I've been saying that. If you've watched me at all, I've been saying that. This is a better Auburn team with Hugh Freeze gone. And I tell you all that because if anybody tries to tell you moving forward, oh, well, you beat an Auburn team in the Iron Bowl. Yeah, that's your rival. Whoop-de-doo. They didn't have their head coach. He got fired. They've been better since Hugh Freeze has been gone. They've been better. He was the issue. So this was a good win. There's no doubt about it. You beat your rival. And there were a lot of other teams that also had some funky type games. You win and you control your own destiny. Now for Alabama and Kalen DeBoer's second year with the Tide, the Crimson Tide will be heading to an SEC championship game with the playoffs very much well in front of them. It's been an interesting year. We're going to dive a bit deeper into this game. So, for Alabama and the offense, there was a lot to be desired. Not particularly in the running. We've talked about that. Running the football, I thought Alabama did very well. 38 carries, 158 yards. Against this Auburn defensive front, you're not going to do much better than that. You're really not. Benjamin Hartley saying, I believe Ty was concussed. You're not the first person I've seen say that. I did see where he had the back of his head bounce off the turf. That is a rough hit, right? Back of the head is always something you kind of look out for. Could have been. But for as many as I think Ty Simpson missed tonight, there were a few plays where they had opportunities to hit big. Ty Simpson is still not hitting the deep shot. And not only is he not hitting on it, but they're missing even the opportunity to throw it quite often. They're missing the opportunity even to throw the deep shot. There were a few times in this game whenever they showed the back view, and I'm excited to get my hands on the all 22 to really dive into it. But there were a lot of times in this game when they showed the back view, you had someone running a post route wide open, cut under the face of the safety, and were wide open. Ty Simpson, if he leads them, if you're able to connect, I mean, you're talking about 6 multiple times. That is something we talked about before the Eastern Illinois game, that I was shocked for how good and the high level throws Ty Simpson makes in the intermediate, that he is not better at the deep ball. And that problem continued tonight, where when he did throw it, you didn't hit it, and then you missed several, where Alabama had a few times where guys were streaking wide open and you just didn't even see them. Now, sometimes, in fairness to Ty Simpson, in fairness to the whole offense, that's because you got beat up front and you just didn't have time to go through your progressions. There were a few times where you did have time to go through the progressions and you just missed it, but that was, that is what it is. That's football. Goof saying, what about the O-line giving him hardly any time? Yeah, don't get me wrong, Goof on YouTube, there were times where he was rushed, but this has been a trend, unfortunately, Goof. This isn't the first time we've talked about this, that Ty Simpson is exceptional at the intermediate. I think that he makes some of the most complex throws in the intermediate game in all of college football in terms of level of difficulty, especially against a cover 2. He just tears cover 2 up on the outside. He is automatic at that. For as good as he is in the intermediate, for the high level of throws he can make in the intermediate, it's kind of perplexing how poor the deep ball has been. And tonight he tried to hit one and just missed, and then several other times, like, in fairness, like you said, Goof, there were quite a few times where he was rushed, quite a few times where the opportunity was there and he just didn't even pull the trigger on him. So that to me is still the most perplexing part of Alabama's offense, is not being able to hit the deep shot. But at the end of the day, Ty Simpson made a few throws in this game that were still jaw-dropping. The first touchdown to Isaiah Horton, I don't know how he was able to make that throw, especially as accurate as he made it. That was a beautiful throw. absolute dime. The 4th and 2, what I believe to be maybe the play of the year right now for Alabama. When you look, a lot of momentum had left Alabama. Alabama went up 17 zip early in this game. And then everything just kind of started to falter. Auburn gained a lot of momentum. Alabama was moving the ball, of course, on offense, but momentum largely on Auburn's side. You have it tied 2020. You could kick. I know that Talty has been incredibly inconsistent, but he was good tonight. Like that, the first field goal they lined up for, I automatically thought to myself, that's going to hurt when he misses this. That's a me problem. I'm the issue. I'm the toxic fan. I'll take that. I instantly thought he was going to miss that field goal, and he knocked it through, and that sucker would have been good from further out. That's the best kick he's made all year. So Talty was on. You don't convert the third down. You could kick the field goal. It's a chip shot. Go up by 3. Your defense has been playing really well. And I know there are going to be people that pull up how many yards Simmons had. Simmons had a great game. Alabama's defense, and we've talked about this several times this year, and one of the things we've talked about has rang true time and time again, that Alabama's defense for, I would say, 90% of a football game is great. And then there's those 10% of plays where they'll give up a big run or a big pass or a dropped interception that then converts into a missed tackle into a big game. The 10% Alabama's defense will have some just plays that gain the majority of a team's yardage. We talked about that against Vanderbilt, where I think Vanderbilt rushed for, please don't quote me on this, I'm not looking at the stats, but I think Vandy rushed for 137 yards in that game. 101 of those yards came off of 2 plays. This is something we've talked about several times with Alabama's defense, and I'm not saying this is a negative. I think Kane Womack has done an unbelievable job this year. I think Kane Womack deserves a lot of praise. But that's what, in my view, a bend but don't break defense is. For the majority of the time, we're going to have your back. But there will be a few plays that are big plays. Real big plays. And that was kind of the story of Alabama's defense tonight. For much of the game, they were really good. Keeping Daniels in the pocket was a problem. If I would say, I think that there was one thing that the defense didn't do well tonight. Daniels was able to create a lot. But I also think that that's what he's going to do. Mark says, what the hell's going on with Ryan Williams? Joyner over on Bleacher Report says, let's get into that. Guys, I don't have the answer. I really don't. I'm shocked. I understand Ryan Williams has had some drops this year. I understand they've been untimely drops. As of right now, even though Alabama has a very deep wide receiver room, and then I want to get into some comments over on YouTube, especially as we have Jant Sports, friend of the show. Jance, hope you're doing well. We have Jant Sports, who has a couple comments that I want to get into over on YouTube. But Joyner, Mark, kind of finishing up the question you guys have, I don't have the answer. So nothing I say here is definitive. Everything I say here is simply my opinion. But the part that I think is so odd, even though Ryan is having a tough year with drops, and even then, I think that it's just been some untimely drops, he's still the best guy with the ball in his hands. And that's saying something, because I believe Lottie is fantastic with the ball in his hands. I think Jeremy Bernard is just a football player, man, through and through. I have my comp for Jeremy Bernard. It's a former Bama player. I will give you all that if enough of you request it, but there is a former Bama player that Jeremy Bernard reminds me a lot of, and it's not going too far into the history books. One that I'd be interested to see what y'all thought. If y'all want me to give that comp, I certainly will. But I don't know why you don't play more of Ryan Williams. It seems to me like you'd want to scheme up a handful of plays every game if he's healthy that you're saying, hey, this is a play for you. And I'm not saying do a deep shot where he has to do so. I'm talking about easy ways to get him the football. That's surprising to me. You would think a guy like that, there would be some effort to get him the football. EO boy, you're 100% right. And someone else on YouTube and someone else over here on Bleacher Report, both of y'all said that as well. That flea flicker, I don't mind that flea flicker, EO boy. I don't mind that flea flicker if you're up 24-0. Because at that point, you have enough of a cushion, and it's one of those plays. Why I don't mind it at 24-0 is it's one of those plays that if you hit the flea flicker and you're up 24-0, you've taken the air out that defense. I absolutely hate it. First down, 17 all, and you can really take the game. I don't know why you do that flea flicker in that time, especially when you finally found a running game. I think that drive, you make them prove that they stopped the run. And then you can start the play action, hit those deep shots. Joyner, for me, I do too. Tuskegee. I don't like when they called it at all. To me, if you're going to do that flea flicker, you have to be up 3 scores. And when I say 3 scores, I mean 3 touchdowns. I don't mean it's going to take the defense 3 scoring drives. I mean, you better be up 3 touchdowns. So, Joyner, for me, Jeremy Bernard reminds me a lot of 2 former Bama players. He reminds me of almost Ardarius Stewart from the standpoint of like, it's just pure heart. It's just pure heart with him. I also, last year, I thought that he was a bit more dynamic, Mechie. Right? So those 2 names, when I watch Jeremy Bernard, like John Mechie and Ardarius Stewart are 2 names that I really think about. I think maybe Ardarius had a bit more home run hitting ability. But it's that dog mentality where it's like, hey, give me the ball, and I might not be the biggest wide receiver, but I am going to make every effort I can to make a positive play. I'm going to hit some comments from Jance, and then Nicholas, I want to get into what you're talking about right here because I actually agree with the early analysis. I haven't read your whole comment, but I do agree with what I see in the first few sentences. Jance Sports over on YouTube says, I can't stand Ryan Grubb. And then he said, why did they go away from the run game when you're averaging 4.5 yards a carry in the first half? I have no idea. No idea. Especially Jance, just like I said, running the football is already something you haven't done super well all season. Running the football on this Auburn defensive front, and make no mistake about it. One, even when Hugh Freeze was there doing coaching malpractice, Auburn was still a really good defense. Even though they had coaching malpractice, it was still a very good defense. They're a better team with Hugh Freeze out of that building. I think if you followed Hugh Freeze, you're not surprised by that. But why, when you get a running game against this Auburn, who's now better than they were with Hugh Freeze, who still has a really good defense, particularly that defensive front. I think Oklahoma's defensive front is better, but Auburn's is right there. It is right there. We're talking two of probably the best defensive fronts in college football. Now, if you have four other teams that you want to put in contention, I'm not mad at it. I'm saying, though, if you're naming me the 10 best defensive fronts in college football, you're certainly putting OU in there. I think you put Auburn in there as well. The fact that you found success running the ball against this Auburn defense and you went away from it, kind of perplexing, because it seems like that's something that would alleviate pressure from Ty. He was, Tuskegee. He was. Nicholas says, our offense is doing our defense a complete disservice the way they are wetting the bed. 4 of the last 5 games, we have asked the defense to do entirely too much. They have answered the call each game. You're 100% right. You are 100% right in terms of defense. And I don't disagree with anything you said at all, Nicholas. The offense is perplexing. I've talked about what I think it is. The reason why I think Alabama's offense has kind of stalled. I know there's a lot of people saying Ty has regressed. I don't actually know that that's it. And I know that's ironic because just earlier I said, hey, we missed a lot of open shots tonight. They were deep shots, but specifically the post from the slot, that was open a lot. A lot. We didn't hit it. I don't know that I believe Ty has regressed, and let me explain why. Because up until this game, Alabama's offense couldn't run the football, and you couldn't hit the deep shot. So defenses knew that, hey, as long as we guard the line of scrimmage to about 20, 25 yards out, this is where the offense is going to be successful. So you already know that Alabama is one-dimensional. They're a pass offense, right? You already know they're one-dimensional. But even amongst one-dimensional offenses, Alabama is extremely one-dimensional up until this point. Because not only do you not run the football particularly well, you don't take the top off of defenses well. You live in the intermediate to short game. So even we know you're going to pass. We know you're probably not going to take the top off the defense. Not that you can't, you just haven't been able to capitalize on the opportunities. Defenses know exactly where they need to guard. You can't run the football, they sit in too high. And they just lock that area of the field down. And I think it's made it so much more difficult for Ty Simpson. Now, I don't disagree with you. There are a lot of throws that you have got to make. They just are. But I think that's a big reason for Alabama's offense sputtering so much, especially here at the back half of the season. It's because teams know exactly what they're going to get from Alabama. Can't beat them deep. You haven't shown that ability. Haven't shown the ability to consistently run outside tonight, ironically. And we know exactly where you're going to attack. So you're right, though. Alabama's defense has stepped up time after time after time. EO boy, I agree. At the point where Alabama's not very good at hitting them, I've been shocked. This is the same reason, EO boy, that I thought last week, even though it ended up working out, I was 100% wrong. I thought last week was a great week to rep the go routes. You still call them a lot. Maybe you're trying to keep them honest, but I don't disagree with you, man. Over on YouTube, Kino says, still nobody has scored more than 24 points since Florida State. Defense is doing a great job. Defense is doing a great job playing phenomenal football, and I love what I see. Let's take a look at that speed. Leading rusher was J.M. Miller, 15 carries, 83 yards, 5.5 per. I mean, you you can't ask for much more than that. Unfortunate he got hurt. I hope he's okay. Listen, if you're someone coming out of this game, and I said this before, but I think this is a great way as we're going to dive into the numbers, give our last take. If you're someone who's disappointed in this game, I hear you, but I'm of the mindset that, yeah, there's a lot that could have gone a lot better, but Alabama found a running game. Hey, Surfer, good to see you over on YouTube. Good to see you over on YouTube. We will see y'all in Atlanta for the SEC Championship game. Hope you're doing well, Surfer. Looking forward to that game as well, man. Looking forward to that game as my Tide will take on your Dogs. So, good to see you, man. Good to see you. As I was saying, I know that there are people that are going to be upset about how Alabama won this game. I have come to appreciate rivalry wins, no matter how ugly they may be. And this was a game where Alabama got turnovers. They generated a ton more opportunities for turnovers. Ty Simpson missed some throws, but boy, did he hit some big ones. You had a gutsy play call on that fourth down where you could have settled for the field goal. You easily could have settled for the field goal. And you went for it on fourth and down, got the touchdown on a really good throw by Ty to Isaiah Horton. And that to me was the play of the year, maybe. I know that might sound a little crazy, but that to me might be the play of the year for Alabama. Not play of the year in all of college football. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for Alabama, that to me was one of the plays of the year. When you take into account momentum has shifted, you went up really early. Auburn came back. They've been playing well. You move the ball downfield, but still momentum has shifted. You could get the easy field goal. Talty's playing well. And you end up getting that fourth down call that converts. What a gutsy play from execution to play call. Defense continues to impress. You came out of here with a win. And like I said, the more I watch football, the more I look at these rivalry wins like Alabama's tonight. And I sit there and say, thank God. You got the win and you can move on. And you got to go to the SEC championship game. In Kalen DeBoer's second year, you're going to the SEC championship game. I'm telling you. I know there's a lot to not like about this game. There is a lot to be happy for, though. A whole lot to be happy for. Kino over on YouTube says these games are never normal in Auburn. Never. Never. Samuel Wilkinson says, so we're down Jam and Kevin Riley at the running back position. That's tough. Prayers for both of them, 100%, Samuel. Prayers for both of them. So 3 running backs being very happy we won, by the way. Yeah, I mean, Deer's going to have to step up. He's got the ability. Daniel Hill, your time. Might see some Richard Young, some Washington. EO Boy says, Bama's run game averaging 4.4 yards per carry. Bama's passing game 3.5. That's insane. That's actually insane. 19 of 35 for Ty Simpson, 122 yards, average, like EO Boy just said, 3.5 per, but he had the 3 touchdowns. And this game in so many ways was like the perfect encapsulation of Alabama's offense for the past few weeks. where there's a lot of head scratching, but then you have a few plays where your jaw just drops. Some of the throws Ties will make, your jaw just drops. Then it's frustration, missed assignments, whether it be offensive line, whether it be head scratching play call, whether it just be a missed pass. But at the end of the day, in a rivalry game, 3 huge touchdown passes from Ty Simpson. None to me better than that first one. That was an insane football. I don't know how he did that one. Matt over on YouTube says it's not always pretty, especially rivalry away games. 100%, Matt. That's why I said I know there's a lot to unpack. I know we could get in the weeds and say, hey, this needs to be better. And I think you would be right. I'm just at a point in my college football fandom where I'm happy to go into the Iron Bowl, have the defensive performance Alabama had, and get the win. I'm very happy for that because I know what this game is, especially on the road. Isaiah Horton led the receivers, 5 receptions, 35 yards, 3 touchdowns. 100% agree, Matt. Matt over on YouTube makes a great point. And Matt, I said this about a game earlier in the year. I don't know which one it was, but I did say this about a game earlier in the year. Maybe someone in the chat will remember. Matt over on YouTube says, we lose this game last year if it was the same situation, grown as a team. I 100% agree with you. And I think that we could say that about a few games this year. I actually 100% agree with you. There have been a few games this year that I don't think Alabama wins last year. And before anybody says, oh, do you think it's because of X, Y, or Z? No, I just think that there were so many moving parts last year. I don't think it's anybody's fault. I really don't. Because I famously said I think that Alabama, whenever we go back and we really start evaluating Nick Saban's last year at Alabama, that is one of his best coaching jobs because Alabama was a few plays away from having more losses than Nick Saban's last year as well, and somehow was in overtime with the eventual national champions that year. Insane coaching job. So, yeah, I actually 100% agree with you. 100% hacker music. Hacker says I could be happy for the team, mad as hell about the mistakes at the same time. I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you. I think that's the approach to have. I just, especially in a rivalry game, I'm almost expecting those mistakes. I'm expecting the worst, and the fact that we get out with the W, hey, all too good. That is something we need to talk about as we're kind of looking through these numbers. Xavier Brown was a monster this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Xavier Brown was a monster this evening. I was so impressed with him. They're only crediting him with 1 pass defended, but it seems to me like it was more. He played, and I think that he's a future first rounder. Xavier Brown had an amazing game tonight. Maybe his best game. Holty, I don't know why they make that call in that situation. I talked about that a little bit earlier, Holty. I don't mind if you make that call if you're up 21-24 points, because then you're trying to take the air out the stadium. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't like that call in that situation, in that point of the field, on a first down when you have complete momentum. You need that other score. At least the way I look at it, but I'm also an idiot. So, but I do agree with you. I do 100% agree with you. I do not like that call in that area. Sabian Brown was phenomenal. Bray Hubbard coming up big on the punching the ball out from Cam Coleman. But man, Bray Hubbard's turn. Who said that? Someone said Bray Hubbard's turnaround post FSU. That's so true. And Roll Tide 1831, you're 100% right. Shout out to Mo Linguist for coaching up these core. Mo Linguist has been an unbelievable hire. I like a lot of the DeBoer hires. I don't know that there's been a better hire than Mo Linguist. It was you, EO boy. I thought it was. I just couldn't. Oh, I see the comment right now. Yeah. EO boy, you're 100% right. EO boy says on a positive note, Bray after the FSU game has turned to a really good player. Really good. Yeah, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. What about the late hit? Should it been called? Which one, Tuskegee? I'm not sure. Are you talking about the kickoff? The kickoff one was a little weird, but it is what it is. Is Red Morgan good? Speed, he played pretty good tonight. I know he had some untimely penalties, but he played pretty well tonight. He's played pretty well all year. Talty does deserve a lot of flowers, but man. Yeah, you're talking about the kickoff, Tuskegee. I don't know, man. I understand, and I know this might ruffle some feathers. I understand why they threw the flag, but I wouldn't have because he hit him in bounds. He hit him in bounds. And it was just a big kind of hit that carried him out of bounds. So I wouldn't have called it. I didn't think it should have been a flag. But whenever I watched it, it was one of those where I was like, well, he did hit the hell out of him and put him probably 5 yards out of bounds, 4 yards out of bounds. So I get why they called it. I didn't like the call, but I didn't think it was like super egregious just because he did put that man a few yards out of bounds. So Matt, I 100% agree. Like I said, I don't like the call, but I do get it. I get it from the optics standpoint, not from like the rule, because if I just couldn't believe how far he took that Auburn player. I was like, oh man, he actually hit him. Like he really hit him. But it was in bounds. So I'm very surprised they called it. But I don't know. Looking at this, Alabama gave up 3 sacks. Alabama got 1 sack. Alabama gave up 3 tackles for loss. It's a good Auburn defensive front, like I said. I am surprised at how much success Auburn had throwing the football, but like I said, that was really 3 big plays. Really, it was Simmons, right? 3 receptions, 143 yards. He had 2 really big plays. That's kind of been the story of Alabama's defense all year, where they play amazing football for 90% of the game, and then that 10% has a few really big plays. Outside of that, though, you're locking teams down. That, to me, is the definition of that bend but don't break. So, Alabama goes to the SEC championship game. Alabama gets a win against their rival in the Iron Bowl on the road. Alabama finishes 10-2, 7-1 in the SEC. They control their own destiny. This has been a good year. Listen, I know that you have the disappointing loss to Florida State. I know that you have the disappointing loss to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is proving to be an absolutely elite defense, which we knew going into that game. If they had an offense, I don't know what you would do with that team. But their defense is phenomenal. But this has been a fun year. Fun year, and it keeps going. Alabama controls their own destiny, makes it to the SEC championship game. So, would love to see them get that SEC championship game win. Make DeBoer an SEC champion in his second year with the program. I think that would be phenomenal for optics, for everything. Roll Tide, ladies and gentlemen. I know there's a lot to not be happy about, but I am choosing to be very, very happy about this game. Matt, I don't think so. I don't think they do. Matt asked, does Texas make the playoffs? I don't think they do. But I also, man, I was kind of against the grain on Texas. I know a lot of people thought that the Longhorns were buried, that they were just some bad team. And I was always, even preseason, I said, hey, I don't think that Texas is like the number one team in the nation, but I don't think they're going to be a bad team. I think they're going to be a good team. Even when everybody said, hey, Texas is a bad team, I was still there saying, I don't think Texas is a bad team. I think they're a good team, but they're a flawed team. They've been getting better. Arch has been getting that confidence. He's still young. He still has a lot he needs to develop. Arch needs work. But I've always been under the assumption that the truth is somewhere in the middle. So I don't think Texas is a bad team. I think they got an amazing win for their program against A&M. I think that's an awesome win. That's a rivalry I'm very happy is back. But no, I do not believe Texas makes the playoffs. Yeah, that's a so we got a Georgia fan over on the YouTube side. But he's a good one. It's he says Surfer Boy over on YouTube, a Georgia fan who friend of the channel, loves seeing Surfer in the comments, always a good time. Saying I didn't want Auburn to put y'all out of the playoffs tonight. We want to have that pleasure. Hey, as if I was a Georgia fan, I would resonate with that, Surfer. So I respect that. I respect that. I listen, Surfer. I'll tell you the team I feel the same way about is OU. I want to play OU again because I just think it's a really fun game. I just think it's a very fun game. I love the way their defensive front operates, and I'd like to have that get back. Oh, don't get me wrong, Keno. That Oklahoma having that off week definitely helped, but that's still a phenomenal defense, Keno. Like, we can keep it real. That's a phenomenal defense. Offense is not very good, but that defense is phenomenal for OU. But that's a team that I'd really like to see again in the playoffs. I'd love that rematch. I hope it doesn't, Big Will. Big Will over on Bleach Report says an SEC loss doesn't put Alabama out the playoffs. I hope it doesn't. I don't have much faith in the committee. I don't. So we'll see. Matt saying we can beat Georgia again never gets old. Hey, it's a great game. It's a great game. Speed, that would be awesome to go to the Pate Live show. Ladies and gentlemen, 10-win season. SEC championship game is on the horizon. You beat your rival. You're about to sign one of the top recruiting classes in the nation. Roll Tide. The future, I understand everybody wrote Alabama is dead and gone. But the future's bright, man. You're post Saban. Everybody said post Saban Alabama would be dead. Everybody said that the Crimson Tide post Saban would be dead. Here we are. Going to the SEC championship game, signing one of the top recruiting classes in the nation, college football playoffs right in front of Alabama. Future's bright. So we'll be back Monday, kind of after I rewatch the game, giving a final analysis, and then we will be back Thursday talking some SEC championship. But as always, roll tide, enjoy y'all Saturday, and enjoy some more football. See y'all next time.